Good morning, it's today again. Welcome back to Joseph's Reserves. I'm Joseph and I store 20% of my income in the form of rare coins and precious metals. About a year ago, I made a video comparing GoldBacks to a silver quarter, and at the time they were nearly identical in value. Today, they're not even close. And the reason why matters more than the price difference itself. Because once you factor in how people actually use these, the winner completely changes depending on the situation. Congratulations to Maestro Metals for getting to my comment section first in my last video. Y'all go down and find him in the comments to start a conversation. In my video last year, the silver quarter and GoldBack were basically the same value. It was one of the cleanest comparisons you can make, two completely different forms of money meeting at the same price point. But today, that balance is gone. Prices have moved and metals shifted, and now one clearly holds more raw value than the other. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people don't actually use these for their full value. So in this video, I want to walk through 3 real-world scenarios which focus on what most people actually do, which is selling at a local coin shop, and then comparing the percentage gains from that outcome. So let's start this by comparing this to the prices a year ago, because that's what makes this comparison so powerful. I made the video in March of 2025. Silver was $33.03 per ounce, and gold was $2,919. The GoldBack exchange rate was $5.94. So if you took a silver quarter and broke it down using stacking math, where $1.40 equals 1 troy ounce, you get that the silver is equivalent to 0.1786 ounces, and you multiply that by the 3303, and you get the melt value of $5.89. So at that moment, the silver quarter and 1 GoldBack were essentially equal. That's what made that video so clean. We had 2 completely different systems, constitutional silver and spendable gold, meeting at the exact same value. Now fast forward to today and everything has changed. We've gone up to $71.17 silver, and gold has climbed all the way to $4,623. The GoldBack exchange rate is currently $9.57. Running that same calculation, we can see that the silver quarter has a melt value of $12.70. So right away you can see the divergence. The silver quarter has more than doubled in value, while the GoldBack has increased but not nearly as much. If you're just looking at raw price movement, silver clearly outperformed gold over this period, and that directly benefits the quarter. But here is where most people stop, and they're completely missing the bigger picture, because the reality is that most people are not melting the silver. They're not walking into stores handing silver quarters at melt value. So the way people actually use these matters a lot more than the theoretical value printed on the paper. So instead of just comparing the price, we need to compare the outcome based on real-world behavior. So let's walk through the first scenario, which is spending each one directly. If you try to spend a silver quarter at its melt value, the $12.70, you're going to run into some friction immediately. Most people don't know what it's worth or know how or want to calculate what it is worth, and they don't trust it enough to accept it as a casual transaction. If this is someone you are in a good relationship with, maybe you know the owner of the business and it's a family-owned business rather than a full franchise or larger company, then it is possible, and I have done a few transactions like this, but it does take a lot of time and a really good relationship with that person. In reality, if you try to spend that quarter, you'd likely get face value or maybe a small premium if you found someone who understands silver, but probably not melt value. On the other hand, the GoldBack was designed specifically for this purpose. It has a known exchange rate, which is currently $9.57, and there's a growing network of merchants who accept it at that rate. So even though the GoldBack has less intrinsic value than the silver quarter, it is far easier to use for its full perceived value. So in a direct spending scenario, the GoldBack wins, not because it's worth more, but because it's usable. So now let's move on to the second scenario. This is far more realistic for people, selling it to a local coin shop. And this is where things flip completely. The silver quarter with a melt value of $12.70 right now in the current market is typically bought around 70% of melt value. That brings the actual cash out to $8.89. And that's the number that matters here because this is what you can actually walk away with. Now compare that to the GoldBack. Even though the exchange rate is $9.57, when you sell it to the coin shop, they're not buying the system, they're buying the gold. And the gold content of the GoldBack is 1/1000th of an ounce, which in today's gold price is $4.62. Now, local coin shops do usually recognize that this is a high premium item, so they will pay you 100% of that spot price. But in this liquidation scenario, silver absolutely dominates. You're getting nearly double the cash compared to the GoldBack value, which is really good to know. And we could just stop here because this is what most people are going to do. But we could take a third scenario. We could manipulate this system to where we get the best out of each product by either spending the GoldBack or selling the silver. And I know this is a little bit of a stretch here, but it does feel like the GoldBack is going to be easier to spend at a merchant where you're explaining the value of these items rather than the silver. Right now you can pull up a map and show of hundreds, maybe 1,000 different vendors who are currently taking GoldBacks. If you show that to any small business, they are a lot more likely to take the GoldBack than they are the silver. So when we look at the GoldBack being spent at the GoldBack rate, it's $9.57. If we compare that to selling the quarter at the 70% of melt, then you end up getting $8.89. So in that specific case, yes, the GoldBack wins. But what you'll notice here is that it only wins if you spend it for the GoldBack rate. GoldBacks were meant to be spent, not stacked. So they are a really good vessel if you have a way to spend them. If you don't, then you're going to be at a loss. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that loss would actually be. For this scenario, we're going to invest, let's just say $1,000 into silver in the form of 90% silver and GoldBacks, but we're going to do it at the March of 2025 price. So if you were to have taken the $1,000 and put it into 90% silver at $33.03 per ounce, you would have ended up with about 30.3 ounces. Today at $71.17, the spot price is $2,156. Selling it at 70% of that, you would walk away with $1,509. And that is a 50.9% gain using this realistic exit. Now, if we take the same $1,000 and put it in GoldBacks at $5.94 each, you would have received 168 GoldBacks. Today, if you spend those at the exchange rate, you would be spending $1,608, which looks like a 60.8% gain, but if you stay inside the system. If you were to sell them at a coin shop, the gold value is actually only $776, which is a 22.4% loss. So depending on how you exit, the GoldBack is either slightly outperforming silver within that closed system of the GoldBack or significantly underperforming it in the open markets. So this is the entire point of the video. We're not just comparing gold and silver, we're comparing the metal versus a system. Silver is a pure asset and it tracks with the spot price. It benefits from the market movements and it holds its value even after the dealer spreads. GoldBacks are a hybrid. It's part metal and part currency system, and their value depends not just on gold but on acceptance. So when you stay inside that system, they perform well. but as soon as you step outside of it, they revert back to their metal content. And this is where the gap is shown. The key takeaway here is that value is not just what something is worth on paper. It's about how much value of that you can access. If your goal is long-term wealth preservation and strong exit value, silver clearly wins in this scenario. If your goal is ease of use and direct spending without conversion, then the GoldBack has a real advantage. But once you understand what most people are going through at the local coin shop to exit their metals, it becomes very clear that silver not only outperformed this last year, but it also delivered a stronger, more reliable real-world return. What's really important here is that you need to be considering your exit plan from the beginning. When you're trying to decide what makes the most sense to be buying, you should definitely be taking a look at what you can get out of that metal or what you can get out of that product when you sell it. Because that is the difference between holding value and actually being able to use it. You can now find my Joseph's Reserves It's Today Again coffee at josephsreserves.com. Every morning is a gift, not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. It's Today Again is a reminder that God has given us this day once more, with new mercy, new opportunity, and real work to be done. It's the moment to show up, build good habits, and take hold of what's been placed in front of us. Whether it's putting in the work, staying disciplined, or saving consistently, or simply choosing to be faithful in the small things, today is where it starts. Encourage one another daily as long as it is called today. Hebrews 3:13. So take a breath, take a sip, and let's get to work. It's today again. You can now write me at Joseph's Reserves, 10160 Highway 242, Suite 800, number 401 in Conroe, Texas, zip code 77385. Make sure to include your information so I can write you back. If you liked today's video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Go down into the comment sections to share your opinions about this video or to catch up with those within the community. Share the video if you know anyone that might like it, and subscribe if you haven't already. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, every ounce adds up, so no matter how small, just keep stacking.